samsara dava nalalida loka tranaya karanya ganaganatvam Praptasya kalyana gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Paditya Madhyan Manaswara Sena Romanchakam Pashutaranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Shivigrahara Dhananitya Nana Shingaratan Mandir Marjanado Yuktasya Bhaktam Shaniyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Chaturvidashi Bhagavad Prasado Swadhana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Kritaiva Triptim Bhajata Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Shri Radhika Madhavayora Para Madhurya Lila Guna Rupa Namna Pratikshana Swadhana Lolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Nikunjayuno Yatikeli Siddhyai Yayali Viryuktira Pikshaniya Tatrati Daksharati Valabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Sakshadarit Vina Samasta Shastra Uktastata Bhavyata Iva Sadvi Kintu Prabhuya Prayeva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Yasya Prasadad Bhagavad Prasado Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutopi Dhyayam stuvam stasya yashasti sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam 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 Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vasya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. व्रजे प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचोरं गोपाङ्गनानां च दुकूलचोरम् प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचोरम् व्रजे प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचोरं गोपाङ्गनानां च दुकूलचोरम् प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचोरं गोपाङ्गनानां अनेकजन्मार्जितपापचोरम् चोराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि श्रीराधिकाया हृदयस्य चोरं नवं बुधं श्यामलाकान्तिचोरम् पादाश्रितं च समसस्तचोरं चोराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि पादाश्रितं च समसस्तचोरं ग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि अकिञ्चनीकृत्य पादाश्रितं ये करोति भिक्षुं पथि गेहहीनाम् अकिञ्चनीकृत्य पादाश्रितं केनापि अहो भीषणचोरैदृग् दृष्टश्रुत्वो वा न जगत्त्रयेऽपि यदीयनामापि हरत्यशेषं गिरिप्रसारान् अपि पापराशिन् नमापि हरत्यशेषं गिरिप्रसारात् आश्चर्यरूपो नानुचोरैदृक् दृष्टो श्रुत्वो वा न माया कदापि धनंश्च मानंश्च तथेन्द्रियाणि प्राणंश्च हित्वा मम सर्वमेव पलायसे कृत्रोधृत्योद्यचोरा त्वं भक्तिधाम्नासि माया निरुद्धा क्षीणस्ति घोरं यमपाशबन्धं दीनस्ति भीमं भवपाशबन्धम् क्षीणस्ति सर्वस्य समस्तबन्धं नैवात्मनो भक्तकृतं तु बन्धम् मन्मानसे तामसि राशि घोरे कारागृहे दुःखमाया निबद्धा लभस्वचोरा हरे चिराय स्वचौर्यदोषे चितम् एव दण्डम् व्रजे प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचोरं गोपाङ्गनानां च दुकूलचोरं सकेशसीदं नवनीतचोरं गोपाङ्गनानां च दुकूलचोरम् अनेकजन्मार्जितपापचोरं चोराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि कजन्माप्राप्तपापचोरं कारागृहे वस सदा हृदये मदीये मद्भक्तिपाशदृढबन्धनिश्चलंश्च त्वं कृष्ण हे प्रलयकोटिसतन्तरेऽपि सर्वस्य चोरा हृदयं नाहि मोचयामि व्रजे प्रसीदं नवनीतचोरं गोपाङ्गनानां च दुकूलचोरं प्रसीदं नवनीतचोरं गोपाङ्गनानां च दुकूलचोरम् अनेकजन्मार्जितपापचोरं चोराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय राधा नील माधव श्री राधे नील माधव श्री राधे जय राधा नील माधव श्री राधे जय जगन्नाथ जय बालादेवा जय सुभद्रा जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय सीताराम भक्त लक्ष्मण हनुमान सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जय सीताराम जय निताय गौरा हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव
Vishnu Pada Brahmamsa Pratikacharya Stota Shata Shishimati Divine Grace Abarchana Rinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Bhaktivedanta Institute Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Brahmamsa Pratikacharya Stota Shata Shishimati Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridasa Ki Jai. Premise Koho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Dadar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Parjabhumi Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Purushottam Chaita Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Shri Ayodhya Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Samarita Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Purushottam Adhika Masa Ki Jai. Harinama Sankirtana Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glory to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Khaladaladaine. Shilathankana khalaye. Eto Narsimha Parato Narsimha. Yato yato yami tato Narsimha. Pahir Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha. Narsimhamadim Sharanam Prapade. Tava Kara Kamala Varenakam Putashringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavajita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो ए अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो ए अभिलाषी जे तुम्हार शरण लो तारा वंश पूर्ण होय कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास नयने हेरिबो सदा युगल रूप राशि एनी वेदान दारो सखी रालुगात कोलो कृष्ण दास को ये ना मोरा होय दीना कृष्ण दास को ये ना मोरा होय श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्याधिकानि च तैतानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्याधिकानि च तैतानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
I desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow mercy upon him and make him a resident of Vrindavana. My desire also grant me residence in the precious groves of Shri Vrindavana town. Thus within my vision I shall always behold the beautiful paths of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower, a careful dancer of the Virgin. Please give me the privileged devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulasi Maharani ki jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting holy names that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the name of the demigods, Lord Shiva or Brahma, to be equal to independent name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the order of spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature pursuing the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities and strength of chanting holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna one of the auspicious ritualistic activities, offering the Vedas free activities, karma, ganda. 9. To instruct a faithless person about glorious holy name. 10. To not complete faith in the chanting holy names, and to maintain material attachments in understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims a Vaishnava for against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just as high trees who can fulfill to everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Jeto darpana marjanam pavamaha davakni nirvapanam Shriya Gairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Putivardhanam Pratipadam Purnarmita Sadhanam Sarvatmasnapanam Paravijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuta Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranina Kalaha Etadishi Tava Kripa Bhagavam Mamapi Durudevami Disham Yahajanina Nurakaha Trinatapi Sunijena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sada Harihi Na Thanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Jammani Jammanishware Bhavata Bhaktir Haituki Tvai Ayinanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mang vishame bhavam buddha Kripaya dava pada pankaja stitha duri satesham vichintaya Nayanam garadashrudaraya vadanam gadgadarudaya gira Pulaka nichitam vapurkada tava nama grahane bhavishyati Yuga itam nimishena chakshusha pravisha itam Shunya itam jagat sarvam govinda virahe name Ashrisava padaratam pinnastumam Adarsanam marmhatam karotuva Yatha tatha va vitatatu lampato matprananathastu sa eva na paraha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all that does accumulate for years and extinguishes fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads a rays and benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases ocean transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone grant all benediction to human beings. Thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have vested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out kindness enables us to easily approach you by holy names. But I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more taller than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant his holy name of the Lord constantly. O my Lord, I have no desire to commit wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Mahajananda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow I have fallen in the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one item to your lotus feet. O my Lord, while my eyes be decorated with love flowing constantly when I chant the holy name, while my voice choke up and hear my body stand and recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling of separation and constant moment to be like a great millennium. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and shall remain so even handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord.
Unconditionally, Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Shri Guru Purnama prayers ki jai.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurung Vaishnavamshta Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamshcha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatya Desha Tarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshavani Videvi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhavin Namaha Madhuryo Jala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktita Shri Gaura Karana Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dina Darine Rupanuga Viruddha Pasiddhanta Dvanta Harine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sasha Vairagya Mutaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padam Pujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanugavarayate Gaura Virbhava Bhumiswam Nirtishta Sajanapriya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jaganathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhishcha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakham Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Srato Pango Mamamanda Matirgati Matsarva Svapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Vindadana Kalpadamadaha Shrimad Ranagara Simhasanastho Shrimad Radha Shri Govinda Devo Prishthariti Sevimano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsam Vinu Sunergo Pir Gopinatha Shri Yisunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurandi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai, Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai.
Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadhiradya Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Parakarasat Masuka Praviksha Lakshaviteshu Surabhi Rabi Palayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasam Parmase Vimanam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Venum Kavanantam Aravinda Talayatasham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Gandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Alola Chantakala Savanamare Vamsi Ranangadam Panayakeli Kalavilasam Shaman Tribanga Lalitam Yata Prakasham Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Anganyasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Karayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chimmaya Satuchala Vigrahasya Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Advaitam Achotam Anadi Mananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Dulabam Adulabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Pantasu Koti Shatavatsara Samprakamyo Vayurathapi Manaso Munipangavanam Sopyasya Prapada Simya Vichinta Tatve Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Ekopya Sora Chaitum Jagadanta Kotim Yachakti Rasi Jagadanta Jayaya Danta Antantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manuchastateva Samprapya Rupa Mahimasana Yana Pusha Suktayam Eva Nikama Patithaistu Vanti Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Ananda Chimmaya Rasa Patipavitapi Sthapi Evan Jarupadaya Kalapi Goloka Eva Nivasati Kilatma Bhutto Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Premanjana Shuruta Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadeva Hitayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundam Achintya Guna Swarupam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Ramadi Murtishu Kalaya Mena Tishtan Nanavatara Makaro Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhava Paramapumam Yo Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Pajami.
Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin. And he is the prime cause of all causes. Okay.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desire in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or gopis.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock feathers, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with the moon locked, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jewel ornaments, who always revels in the pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shyamasundara is eternally manifest.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of the transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane extending over thousands of millions of years.
He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore.
I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantras suktas told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency, possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidants, Sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shyamasundara, Krishna himself, with inconceivable innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion, ringed with the salve of love.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world, in the forms of Rama, Narasimha, Vamana, etc., as a subjective portion.
Very good. Thank you very much. It's really wonderful that we recite these every day. Krishna is hearing it. He's right behind those curtains. And he appreciates it very much that we glorify him in this way. Glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1. You can repeat together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janma Jasya Yato Niviyat Itaratas Charteswa Vigyaswarat Tene Brahma Hidaya Adikavaye Muyanti Atsurayaha Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha Damna Swena Sada Nirastakuhakam Pat Satyam Param Dimahi. Somebody can read.
O my Lord Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation. sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, and as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water, only because of him to the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Very good. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.2. We can recite together. Dharma prochida kaikchavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivedanta potra mulana Srimad Bhagavate Mahamani Krite Kimva Ishwara Sadyohridya Vurudite Tra Krite Bihi Sususabis Takshanat. Somebody can read.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Very good, thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.3. Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam sukhogad amrita dravya samyatam pibata Bhagavatam rasam alayam muhur aho raska bhuri bhavakaha. Someone can read?
O expert and thoughtful men, O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of the Vedic literature. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadev Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although its nectarine juice was already relishable for all, included liberating souls.
Very good, thank you. So now we'll read the translation of this Churastakam. I offer my respectful obeisances to that foremost of thieves, who is famous in Braja as the butter thief, and who steals the gopis' clothes, and who, for those who take shelter of him, steals the sins which have occurred over many lifetimes. Hari Bol.
I offer my respectful obeisances to the foremost of thieves, who steals Srimati Radhika's heart, who steals the dark luster of a fresh rain cloud, and who steals all the sins and sufferings of all those who take shelter of his feet.
Very good.
He turns his surrendered devotees into paupers and wandering homeless beggar. Alas, such a fearsome thief has never been seen or heard of in all the three worlds.
Thank you.
Mere utterance of his name purchased one of a mountain of sins. Such an astonishingly wonderful thief I have never seen or heard of anywhere.
Very good.
O thief, having stolen my wealth, my honor, my senses, my life, and my everything, where can you run to? I have caught you with the rope of my devotion.
Hari Bol.
You cut the terrible noose of Yamaraja, you sever the dreadful noose of material existence, and you slash everyone's material bondage, but you are unable to cut the knot fastened by your own loving devotees.
Very good.
O stealer of my everything, O thief, today I have imprisoned you in the miserable prison house of my heart, which is very fearful due to the terrible
Darkness.
to the terrible darkness of my ignorance, and there for a very long time you will remain, receiving appropriate punishment for your crimes of thievery.
Hari Bol. Next.
O Krishna, thief of my everything, the noose of my devotion remaining forever tight, you will continue to reside in the prison house of my heart because I will not release you for millions of aeons.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Srimad Bhagavatam, Grantharaj Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 14, verse number 24? 23. Esa Goratma Vela Goranam Goradarsana Charanti Yasyam Bhutani Bhute Sanu Charaniha. Asa, this time, Goratama, most horrible. Vela, period. Goranam, of the horrible. Gora Darshana, horrible looking. Charanti, move. Yasyam, in which. Bhutani, ghosts. Bhuta Isa, the Lord of the ghosts. Anucharanani, constant companions. Ha, indeed. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This particular time is most inauspicious. This is Kasyapa Muni speaking, talking to his wife, Diti. This particular time is most inauspicious because at this time, the horrible-looking ghosts and constant companions of the Lord of the ghosts are visible. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Kasyapa has already told his wife Diti to wait for a while, and now he warns her that failure to consider the particular time will result in punishment from the ghosts and evil spirits who move during this time along with their master, Lord Rudra. Well, this is very interesting. There are specific times when one can husband and wife can try to have a child. If they do it at the wrong time, it can result in a disaster. And if they do it without caring about without preparation for the copulation, that's even worse. So here we have Kardama Muni, who is too weak to control the lust of his wife, warning her, let's not do this because it's not the right time, and also we're not in the right consciousness. So here we see how giving birth to children or trying to have a child is there's a very specific way of doing it in order to have children of good birth and good qualities. First of all, it cannot be an act of lust. There must be preparation called Garbhadan Samskar to purify one's consciousness before they even attempt to have a child. So what is that mean in Krishna consciousness? It means that before husband and wife try to have a child, they first will sit together and chant 64 rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. They also will take the blessing of their parents that they may do such a thing to have good children. So there's no secrecy, there's no, dark room. Everything is performed according to the principles of Krishna consciousness, which will guarantee that the quality of the children will be a very good quality or a very good standing, that they'll be blessed with a son or daughter that is a pure devotee. So we see that. We see that when the consciousness of the husband and the consciousness of the wife are both highly developed in Krishna consciousness, the child will be a very, very good child, because the Lord will place a pure devotee in the womb of the mother. Okay, so here Kashyapa Muni is trying to convince his wife, look, this is not the right time of the day to try to have a child. Not only that, look, you're completely overwhelmed with lust, and I'm too weak to stop you from doing this. At least let's not do it at the wrong time. Kashyapa Muni had already told his wife to wait for a while, and now he warns her that failure to consider the particular time will result in punishment from the ghosts and the evil spirits who move during this time along with their master, Lord Rudra. What time are they talking about? It's like the time when the sun's going down and the moon is coming up. It's actually inauspicious to do things at that time, especially try to have a child. Are there any questions? Okay, so we'll go to the next verse. Itasyam sadvisanyayam Bhagavan Bhuta Bhavana Parito Bhuta Parsabdir Visenatati Bhutarat Etasyam, in this period. Sadhvi, O chaste one. Sandhyayam, at that junction of day and night, evening. So to see, that's the time when that's inauspicious. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Bhuta Bhavana, the well-wisher of the ghostly characters. Parita, surrounded by. Bhuta Parsadibihi, by ghostly companions. Rishena, on the back of the bull carrier. Atati, travels. Bhutarat, the king of the ghosts. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Shiva, the king of the ghosts, sitting on the back of his bull carrier, Nandi, travels at this time, accompanied by ghosts who follow him for their welfare. Well, now you got some information here. So this is like big time information. At the when the sun is going down and moon is coming up, it's a very inauspicious time to think about having a child. And maybe in other ways is very inauspicious. So somebody can read the purport.
Lord Shiva, or Rudra, is the king of the ghosts. Ghostly characters worship Lord Shiva to be gradually guided towards a path of self-realization. Mayavadi philosophers are mostly worshippers of Lord Shiva, and Sripad Shankaracharya is considered to be the incarnation of Lord Shiva for preaching godlessness to the Mayavad philosophers.
Go ahead.
Ghosts are bereft of a physical body because of their grievously sinful acts such as suicide.
Okay, so that you should keep this in mind. There's so many people, they get so frustrated they decide to suicide. That does not solve their problem. That makes it much worse. If you commit suicide, you become a ghost. What is a ghost? It's a person who has hundreds and thousands of material desires, but doesn't have a body, a gross body, to actuate those desires. So it's the most frustrating situation. And it's worse than anything else. So ghosts become very vicious. And anybody who smokes marijuana or takes drugs or engages in sinful activities, the ghosts try to take possession of their body, so now through their body they can experience sense gratification. So when you see someone walking down the street talking to himself or herself and saying crazy things, that person has been seized by a ghost. And we see it. You go to Capitol Hill, you go to Pioneer Square, you go to downtown Seattle. You'll see some people talking to themselves, walking down the street, acting very strange. They've been possessed by a ghost. Now, how do you know if there's an attempt by a ghost to seize your body? Well, when you're sleeping, sometimes a very bad smelling, let's say, liquid of saliva comes out of your mouth. That very bad smelling saliva is an indication that the ghost is trying to get into your body and take possession of it. So you see, there are a lot of things people don't understand about, Krishna consciousness, or even how to live a clean life. So ghosts, they like definitely to see someone who doesn't bathe regularly, who engages in unclean habits like drinking alcohol, smoking marijuana, who does not have good physical cleanliness, whose mind is always cluttered with many material desires. These are the people that are primed for being seized by a ghost. Now, do ghosts exist? Yes, you're hearing about it right now. They actually exist. And there's more and more of them because so many people are committing suicide nowadays. Even teenagers. You hear about it all the time. So you see how dangerous life has become in an atheistic society. And we have almost a predominant atheistic society today in the United States and other European countries and around the world. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go. Start again from the beginning.
Lord Shiva or Rudra is the king of the ghosts. Ghostly characters worship Lord Shiva to be gradually guided towards a path of self realization. Mayavadi philosophers are mostly worshippers of Lord Shiva, and Sripada Sankaracharya is considered to be the incarnation of Lord Shiva for preaching godlessness to the Mayavadi philosophers. Ghosts are bereft of a physical body because of their grievously sinful acts, such as suicide. The last resort of the ghostly characters in the human society is to take shelter of suicide, either material or spiritual. Material suicide causes loss of the physical body, and spiritual suicide causes the loss of the individual identity. Mayavadi philosophers desire to lose their individuality and merge into the impersonal, spiritual Brahmajyoti existence. Lord Shiva, being very kind to the ghosts, sees that although they are condemned, they get physical bodies. He places them into the wombs of the women who indulge in sexual intercourse regardless of the restrictions on time and circumstance. Kashyapa wanted to impress this fact upon Diti so that she might wait for a while.
So there's a lot of information here. And so the Mayavadis who want to merge into the Brahmajyoti, that is a type of ghostly existence because they're denying their individuality and trying to become a non-person. And then you have, so that's a spiritual, yes. The last resort of the ghostly characters in human society is to take shelter of suicide, either material or spiritual. So someone reading this, they said, what? Spiritual? What do you mean, spiritual? Well, we mean Mayavad philosophy. Nirakar, Nirakar, Nirakar. The absolute truth is not personal. And everything is impersonal. Well, that's spiritual suicide. And then there's material suicide where you destroy the body willfully. Lord Shiva, being very kind to the ghosts, sees that although they are condemned, they get physical bodies. He places them in the wombs of women who indulge in sexual intercourse regardless of the restrictions on time and circumstances. Kashyapa wanted to impress this fact upon Diti so that she might wait for a while. When you're lusty, there's no question of waiting for a while. The person becomes so agitated, they have to do their thing right now. And regardless of the consequences. But once the consequences come, then you feel sorry. Then you get the weight of punishment for acting improperly. Are there any questions or comments? Have you ever heard this before?
Yeah, the Lord Shiva, that is completely new information for me.
Even that material and spiritual suicide, a lot of people like
what?
Spiritual suicide also.
Yes, that's my
philosophy. Merging it Brahman, but Prabhupada is saying spiritual suicide. It's like a big word for me.
Next time you see a Mayavadi, you say, "Oh, you're engaged in spiritual suicide." So what are you talking about? So you can show him this verse. Yeah, anybody else? Have you ever heard this before? This is like shocking information. Okay, we'll go to the next verse.
Maharaj,
Yeah.
What is the reason Lord Shiva preaching godlessness to Mayavadi philosophers, Maharaj? What is the significance in that?
Well, that's a good reason not to become a Mayavadi philosopher or a Mayavadi, because you're going to learn godlessness. What does it mean, godlessness? The Mayavadis are very, very insulting to Krishna. They're worse than atheists. They are atheists, but they're the atheists of the worst kind. Why? Because they purposely claim God does not have a form. He's not a person. Well, what does that mean? That means they're rejecting the existence of God. So not only they're atheists, but they're also insulting Krishna in the worst way. Like, for example, if a Mayavadi tells you, this body you have is an illusion, that the material world is an illusion, that the spiritual world is also an illusion, that your belief in Krishna and the existence of someone like Krishna is also an illusion. And if there is Krishna, he has a material body just like you do and I do. This is what they preach. Right? So they reject the existence of the material world. They reject the existence of the individual soul. They say there's only one soul, that's Brahman. So they're rejecting everything that is true. So if you become a Mayavadi, you become a complete atheist. And when they say Nirakar, Nirakar, they're insulting Krishna himself. Just like we know Krishna has eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. He has transcendental body. We learn these things by coming to class. His body is Satchitananda Vigraha. Ishwara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha. Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. So, why are we reciting these verses from the Brahma Samhita? Let's take a look. This is to understand who Krishna actually is. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin. And he's the prime cause of all causes. Well, it's clearly saying here, Satchitananda Vigraha. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. The Mayavadi is trying to convince you that he doesn't have an eternal spiritual body. If he has anything, it's a material body, which is an illusion. So that's worse than the atheist. The atheists, they say, well, we don't believe in God. But the Mayavadi says that we don't believe that God has a spiritual body. That means he doesn't have eyes, ears, tongue, nose, skin. He is without consciousness. He is not even spiritual. If he appears in a temporary material body, and so forth. So they are the worst insulters of Krishna, worse than even the atheists. They are atheists, but of an extreme level. So that's why you're hearing this. Hearing what? You're hearing that. And Sripad Sankaracharya is considered to be an incarnation of Lord Shiva, for preaching godlessness to the Mayavadi philosophers. Okay, now this seems to be a disjunct there, or it seems to be something that doesn't make sense. On the one hand, ghostly characters worship Lord Shiva to be gradually guided toward a path of self-realization. Mayavadi philosophers are mostly worshippers of Lord Shiva, and Shripad Sankaracharya is considered to be the incarnation of Lord Shiva for preaching godlessness to the Mayavadi philosophers. Okay, so here we have 2 points. One, Lord Shiva, who's the king of the ghosts, and the ghostly characters who worship Lord Shiva can gradually be guided toward a path of self-realization. That's point one. Point two, Mayavadi philosophers are mostly worshippers of Lord Shiva. And Shripad Sankaracharya is considered to be the incarnation of Lord Shiva for preaching godlessness to the Mayavadi philosophers. Whoa. What did this just say? It says that whatever you're desiring, you will be entangled. In other words, anything that is not Krishna consciousness, or any kind of desire that you may have that is not Krishna consciousness, is going to entangle you. So, on the one hand, if you worship Lord Shiva for spiritual realization, he will help you. But if you worship him as a Mayavadi to become non-existent as a person, he'll help you do that too. So everything depends on what we're desiring. That's why Lord Chaitanya said, if you take the trouble to understand Mayavad philosophy, you will never understand Krishna conscious philosophy. So if you go and listen to different Mayavadis, now who's a Mayavadi? Someone who doesn't believe God exists as a person, Nirakar. Then you will be misled and get stuck in a, let's say, frame of mind that is completely bereft of any possibility of understanding who God is. So are there any questions about that? This material suicide causes loss of the physical body, and spiritual suicide causes loss of the individual identity. Mayavadi philosophers desire to lose their individuality and merge into the impersonal, spiritual Brahmajyoti existence. Lord Shiva, being very kind to the ghosts, sees that although they are condemned, they get physical bodies. He places them in the wombs of women who indulge in sexual intercourse, regardless of the restrictions on time and circumstance. Kashyapa wanted to impress this fact upon Diti so that she might wait for a while. Well, she doesn't. And now we're going to learn what happens when people become irresponsible about the responsibility of science, of procreation of good children or saintly children. Okay, so even if there is a mistake and the child is born with demoniac or atheistic tendencies or sinful desires, there's still a possibility to purify that. It's through Krishna conscious training. And we see, like, for example, do you think a member of the Shiva Vaishnava community would go to New York City to the Bowery, the lowest part of Manhattan, and try and train some of these drug addicts and other, perverts to become Krishna conscious? What do you think? There's no way, no chance. But that's what Prabhupada did. And he did succeed in purifying many of those very fallen people. So, even though one may be born in the most, let's say, horrible conditions because of the bad consciousness of the parents, there's still possibility through Krishna consciousness to purify that person. That's the mercy, and that's the great benefit of being Krishna conscious. Okay, so you want to discuss this anymore?
I think this verse, this purport is phenomenal from the perspective of our own realization on why Krishna consciousness is the most purest form of spiritual path. Because otherwise, it may seem like people who are within our community of friends and families, they may think that they're in the path of spirituality, but it could be a completely extreme case where the fact that Prabhupada calls this a spiritual suicide, which is a very significant statement, because one may feel proud that they're making spiritual progress in that path, but they're probably moving as far as possible from the real reality. And this is probably why Krishna also says that in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that it's very hard for those people who worship the impersonal Brahman to eventually reach him. I mean, they'll eventually get there.
It's very difficult.
Very difficult. Yeah, so I think this is...
no, it is possible for a bona fide impersonalist to make spiritual advancement. Who is a bona fide impersonalist? Someone who has a bona fide guru. But if you're being led by an unbona fide spiritual master, so-called spiritual master, then there's no hope. So what's the difference in a bona fide and unbona fide spiritual master? Well, a Mayavadi is an unbona fide spiritual master. They're going to teach you, they're not going to teach you Brahma Samhita, let's put it like that. So that's why we're reciting the Brahma Samhita, to understand who Krishna is actually, and what are his unique qualities that make him the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What is the Mayavadi going to do? They're trying to break that whole thing, destroy it, smash it, pulverize it completely. Right, the understanding of Krishna as a pure Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why they're considered the worst insulters of Krishna. And there's many of them, so many of them in India. One lady called me up yesterday. She said, "Oh, Prabhu, I want to ask you a question." I said, "Yes, what is it?" She said, "This one lady came from India, and then she did a program at the temple in Bothell. And after that, she came to my house and did a program, and she gave me a name and said, I'm initiated." She said, "Am I really initiated by her?" She said, "Should I consider that she's my guru?" So she's asking me this question, right? So I said, "No, you're not initiated by her. And she's not really a guru." She said, "Oh, thank you," she said. "So what should I do if I want to get initiated? I said, you should come to the temple and learn what your relationship with Krishna actually is and who Krishna is. And then you get initiated after you're educated properly. She said, okay, I do that. You see what's going on, you know, if some stranger comes from India, does a program, comes to somebody's house, and right away they give them initiation. And the person who, you know, I mean, they get confused. They say, oh, am I initiated, or is this person actually my guru? And this is going on all over the place. There's so many bogus so-called gurus in India, in the United States, in Christianity, Islam, and they're initiating people left and right. But initiating them into what? Into becoming a ghost eventually. Okay. So what time is it now? All right.
So, and Maharaj, I think the way you pose the question about, you know, somebody from even Vaishnava philosophy, like Sri Vaishnava versus Gaudiya Vaishnava, like going to the lowest societies and then uplifting them, that shows the real compassion of the Vaishnava, and I think that defines, I mean, they all follow the same Siddhanta, but I think it's in terms of how we practically apply and give a chance for every living entity to get liberated. I mean, that's the real answer.
Prabhupada did not come and said, oh, none of these people deserve to be Krishna conscious, they're too low. He didn't say that. Why? Because, and this is what we should remember, because he has complete faith in the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. He knows that there's no difference between Krishna and his holy name and names. Therefore, he took the risk of preaching to these very low people, and some of them became genuine devotees. That's a miracle. One time Prabhupada was in a train going somewhere in India, and a group of men came. They wanted to talk to him, you know, so they wanted to enter the cabinet, or the room where he was sitting, you know, in those old-time Indian trains. And they let, the devotees let them in, and they said, oh, Prabhupada, they said, you are, you know, we want to have your asirbat. He said, my asirbat? He said, my asirbat is here. And he pointed at the devotees. He said, they were not devotees. They were in illusion in the material world. And now they've taken up Krishna consciousness. He said, this is the asirbat. You come and you engage in devotional service, chanting Hare Krishna, Maha Mantra, and learn about Krishna, and then become a devotee and spend the rest of your life engaged in devotional service like these boys and girls are doing. This is the real asirbat, the real blessing. So the men were a little bit surprised, because usually, you know, someone says that to some guru, he said yes, and he puts his hand on their head, you know, and then that's supposed to be the asirbat, you know. And he touched you, and is that right? Right. Oh, Prabhupada said, no, the asirbat, you become like these boys and girls. That's the real blessing. And that's true. Okay. Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Go ahead.
So these Mayavadis philosophers, they are making them by merging into the Brahman and like spiritual suicide. making them ghosts. And Prabhupada is making all the Vaishnavas making ghost-like people into the devotees. It's kind of
Trying, yes.
most of them became also devotees.
Well, I mean, it's still going on. Devotees are continuing what Prabhupada started, training people to learn who Krishna actually is. They don't know who Krishna is. A Mayavadi has no idea who is God. He says that there's only one soul. In other words, the Mayavadis reject the idea that you have a soul, an individual soul. You have to give it up in order to become a Mayavadi. This is all crazy stuff. It's full of nonsense. But yet people love it. And they're attracted to it. This is how miserable
Many
life has become. Yes.
many religious podcasts, Maharaj. Many religious podcasts will be there in that religious when they talk. Except ISKCON people who come to those podcasts, they talk about Krishna. All other people, they talk about Lord Shiva only as the main person.
But yet, if you read the Padma Purana, which is all discussions between Shiva and Parvati, they're talking about Krishna. Shiva and Parvati, they're talking about Krishna day and night. And the Mayavadis, they don't talk about Krishna, they only talk about Shiva. It's very interesting, isn't it? It's as if they never read the Padma Purana. Anyway, there's many, many things that are wrong in modern society. And one of them is this example of Diti and Kashyapa Muni, where she is overwhelmed with sex desire, and he is not strong enough to control her. And although he's trying to some way, but it's not working because he's weak himself. And therefore, now you're going to see, they gave birth to the two greatest demons in the history of the world, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. That's serious, very serious. Now, whenever a demon is born, there are oftentimes cataclysmic events that take place, like hurricanes, tsunamis, big fires like Maui, and all kinds of disasters that take place. Well, you're seeing a lot of disasters today, aren't you? Are you not? Almost every day now there's some disaster somewhere in the world. That means that there are a lot of demons being born now. You see, all these things could be corrected if people followed Krishna consciousness. But because they're not, what's happening is that more and more demons are being born, and they're creating havoc in the world. Okay, so we'll talk about this some more. Any other questions?
Yeah. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you so much for such a nice explanation, and especially spiritual suicide. So just, I'm wondering if religions, I don't want to name, but religions, if they don't believe in God or formless, so they are also doing spiritual suicide. My understanding earlier was that whatever religion we follow, at least we will reach somewhere in the ladder, and then we start from the next birth. Where we let specifically when some religions, they do worship, let's say Mother Mary or some form of son of the God.
Well, this was answered in the purport today, where it said, Lord Shiva or Rudra is the king of the ghosts. Ghostly characters worship Lord Shiva to be gradually guided toward a path of self-realization. Mayavadi philosophers are mostly worshippers of Lord Shiva, and Shripada Sankaracharya is considered to be the incarnation of Lord Shiva for preaching godlessness to the Mayavadi philosophers. So, it all depends on what you are desiring. So if you want to be a non-person, then Lord Shiva will help you. So there's something you have to understand about demigods. Demigods can go two ways. If you approach a demigod, just like the gopis approach Durga, and to have Krishna as their husband, she helped them. But if you approach Durga, Janam Dehi, Dhanam Dehi, Rupam Dehi, give me this, give me this, give me that, then they say, okay, that's what you want, that's what you're going to get. So everything depends on our desires. If we don't learn Krishna consciousness and don't practice it, we will desire all kinds of things, and we'll go to the demigods to try and get them. And they'll say, okay, well, you had two choices here. We can help you like a guru. The demigods are, in a sense, gurus. And they can help you come closer to Krishna. But if you go to them for material desires, then they'll say, well, that's what you want, that's what you're going to get. Then they help you go away from Krishna and become entangled in the cycle of birth and death. So it all depends on what your desires are. So what do you think after 18 or 24 years of material education a person is going to desire? You tell me. They go through all the different classes and studying. Just like yesterday, we were reading what they are teaching in sex classes that are mandatory at certain points. So they're not teaching anything that's Krishna conscious at all. They're teaching the opposite of it. So let's not talk about our own kids. Kids from other traditions and religions, they go to those classes. They have no way to understand how they're being misled. No way at all. They accept whatever is being said is more or less the truth. Maybe the Muslims, maybe the Hasidic Jews, maybe some Christians will try and warn their kids this is all nonsense. But most of the kids are being groomed to be sense gratifiers the rest of their life. And even our own kids are not safe from that, because they have your kids in prime time for years to be indoctrinated with this nonsense. So this is what's going on. You understand? So you go to demigods, they can help you go closer to Krishna, and they can help you to forget Krishna. There you go. And it's all in this purport. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Everything depends on what you're desiring. So, Diti is desiring to do something that's illicit. There's consequences. Her husband is trying to convince her not to do it, but he's not strong enough to do it. So he's also going to make the mistake, and there are consequences, big consequences.
Prabhupada.